Another round of applause for Jagan.
Of course, we heard about COVID-19 because it impacted everyone. But there are other health epidemics that affect different parts of the world. And right now, Africa is dealing with these epidemics. These are not crises that capture media attention, nor the attention of the politicians or the decision makers. But we are there too, with our people and with our resources. Let me give you one example how we help. At the IFRC, we have what we call a disaster response emergency fund, or DREF. Tens of millions of Swiss francs, that's 20 of millions of Australian dollars, which can be deployed fast when a crisis strikes, sometimes in a matter of hours. We don't wait for the emergency to hit the headlines, because too often we know it will never hit the headlines. Instead, we channel that money fast to our member national societies to use as they see best at the local level. Because they are there, they know what the solutions should be. And that's what we did in July after Cyclone Jagan hit the Philippines. When it hit Leonica Ibanez and her family, the floods literally swept them from their home. See her husband and two sons spent hours clinging to the top of a tree. When the water level finally dropped, her house was gone. Only the toilet bowl was left, she told one of my colleagues recently. But she is being helped back to a more peaceful life by our Philippine Red Cross teams, given food, medicines, somewhere to sleep. Now able to look to restart the street food business she had before the storm. Did you hear about Jagan? You probably didn't hear much about that storm. It was overshadowed in the news that week, of course, by the deteriorating situation in Gaza. And I'm sure this one you remember, President Biden's decision to pull out of the White House race. And here in Australia, by a military helicopter crash and the ARIA Music Award nominations. Those were the headlines, not Cyclone Jagan. But when the crises are not in the headlines, it's the job of our movement to respond to. To be there, regardless of where the world's attention is, to bring peace, or at least more peaceful life, wherever, whenever we can. But as a movement, we don't want to respond to humanitarian needs or see it as an end in itself. We engage confidentially with governments worldwide to stress the need for diplomatic solutions to the conflicts that rage around us. We advocate hard on action to address the climate crisis. I was in COP29 in Baku just before I flew here. Likewise, we understand that to tackle community hopelessness and the sense of exclusion I talked about earlier, we have to restore people's minds as well as protect their bodies. Psychosocial or mental health support, whatever the turmoil or sense of isolation that led to its need, is an increasingly important part of our work. Improving people's resilience or establishing enduring peace takes a holistic and collaborative response. With ambulances attacked, hospitals bombed, and humanitarian workers killed, despite guarantees from parties to the conflict. This must change. Because humanitarians are needed more than ever. And here's where I want to get to the positive, to talk with pride about the good humanitarians can do and how those across our movement do it. I was in Beirut the week before last. There I met Ahmed, a 14-year-old boy living in a shelter in Beirut. His family left their home in southern Lebanon a few weeks earlier when 1 in the morning bombs started falling. Ahmed spent the rest of that night petrified on the beach. After getting displaced 3 times in a month, he is now in a shelter supported by the Lebanese Red Cross, unable yet to go back to school, but helped by volunteers to get access to his lessons online instead. I met Jahara too, a young education student who had fled to the same shelter on September 23rd. Without him and without his voluntary staff, she told me, she doesn't know where she would be and what her condition would have been. Those are just 2 people of millions whose lives right now are difficult, turbulent, but made that little more peaceful by the efforts of those in our Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. And how do our staff and volunteers help? By sticking ferociously to those principles I outlined earlier, taking no side but the side of humanity, protecting life and health, and alleviating suffering wherever it's found. By being impartial, making no discrimination, and being guided solely by the needs of the impacted. By being neutral, not taking sides, dealing with the consequences, not blame. By being independent, working closely with the authorities and within their laws auxiliaries, but maintaining autonomy and independence. And by running on the power of volunteers, people not motivated by money or other gain, but purely by a desire to help, united for a humanitarian cause and universal in their action. People across our movement apply these principles in high-profile crises and also in those crises which are forgotten by the outside world. Of course, they are not forgotten by the people who have to deal with them every day. A short day in February, while helping others sheltering within the Al-Amal hospital in Khan Yunis. And in late August, Sabair Ibrahim Adam became the 8th member of the Sudanese Red Crescent to have lost their life since the conflict began there in mid-April last year. A conflict which doesn't get much attention, but is horrible. It's impacting people. It's horrible. Sadly, I could go on. These people were the best of us on the front lines of humanity. And I think it's only pity that we dedicate this beautiful piece of work to these people who give their life while trying to save someone else's life. Let's give this to them. Our local humanitarian workers embedded within their communities because they come from their communities cannot evacuate when conflict escalates. In case of Gaza, I can tell you with certainty, they did not want to because they knew they would be needed. They are dedicated, but that dedication should never leave them dead. There is an architecture that protects them. Almost every country in the world has agreed to the laws of war, the legal framework of international humanitarian law, or IHL. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the cornerstone treaties of IHL, the Geneva Conventions. These laws reflect the world's agreement that wars have limits and that parties to conflict must protect those who are not part of the fight. IHL requires all parties to armed conflict to ensure civilians and the wounded and sick are not targeted. Ensure secure, safe, unconditional, unhindered, impartial humanitarian access and assistance. Protect medical services and personnel, which includes protection and respect for the Red Cross, Red Crescent emblems, which are symbols of neutrality and protection. Provide information on the fate of the missing and much more. These are vital entitlements. They must be complied with. But IHL is being ignored more and more, as we see in the conflict today in different parts of the world. The Red Cross Red Crescent emblems are symbols of neutrality and protection, likely to be much worse. And wherever the official numbers end up, the true picture is likely to be worse still. That's both because many of those in need are so marginalized, they are not even recognized by systems meant to catch them. And also because crisis of conflict climate and broadly confidence in the future know no borders. In an interconnected world, ripples spread to families and communities everywhere, including here in Australia. There's also a very specific and immediate crisis that I need briefly to dive into, a crisis which is hitting humanitarians hard, and both Lord Mayor and Mohammed alluded to that. Because before talking about the good those in our Red Cross Red Crescent movement do to address all this, I must talk about the bad that's being done to them. We are facing what may become the deadliest year ever for humanitarian workers. So far, 277 have been killed on duty, primarily local staff, whose death, though equally tragic, go far less noticed in the media or in political capitals than those of their international counterparts. Every human life, every life of humanitarian workers must be equally sacred. Our movement has accounted for some of those deaths. This year, 2024, 30 from our member national societies and a further 6 from the ICRC. In just the Gaza-Israel conflict alone, over the 13 months since its major escalation, 28 have died. 6 from Magen David Adom in Israel, our national society there, 1 from the ICRC, another missing, and 21 from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, the PRCS. Volunteer paramedic from the PRCS, Muhammad Al-Amali, was one of those. He made our president, my president, Kate Force, when she visited Gaza in February. They shared a conversation, a handshake and a smile. Just hours later, the same day, while rushing to give medical relief to those in need, Muhammad was killed before President Kate Force could return back to Geneva. Magen David Adom paramedic Amit Man was another on the 7th of October 2023. She was killed while protecting patients when the clinic she was working in was. Thank you everyone. Thank you Muhammad for that amazing speech. And of course, I express my deep appreciation to distinguished members of the Sydney Peace Foundation for their decision to award this year's Sydney Peace Prize to International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement. And I feel myself very fortunate to be able to receive this on behalf of the 16 million volunteers. As Lord Mayor said, the ordinary people do extraordinary work, and that's the story of every single volunteer who work in every part of the world. But of course, we heard a very passionate story from Dr. Palestinian. Before I start, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we have gathered on, the Gadigal people of the Eora nation, and of course, pay my respect to their elders, past and present. It's an immense honor to accept the Sydney Peace Prize on behalf of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. That is to say, a movement is a family. On behalf of the organizing IE, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, the IFRC. On behalf of the International Committee of Red Cross, the ICRC. And most of all, perhaps, on behalf of the 191 Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies around the world, including the Australian Red Cross here, who are present in the room. So from me, and from all of them, thank you. But also from me to all those volunteers all around the world, thank you to them too. It's because of their work we are here. As I mentioned, this award is primarily a testament to the dedication of more than 16 million volunteers and staff working as part of those 191 National Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. It's a testament to them that they strive to protect lives and restore dignity, often in the most volatile and dangerous environments in the world. Their work reflects the core values that drive our movement and have driven it for 160 years, including 110 years here in Australia. Values that reflect our fundamental principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, unity, and universality. I will talk more about the importance of those in a moment, but first I must acknowledge earlier the irony of accepting a peace prize at a time that there doesn't seem to be much peace. Across the Middle East, in Sudan, Myanmar, Ukraine, Russia, and in far too many other places, to listen up, there are fierce hostilities. And of course, we heard the story of Gaza from Muhammad. I don't think I could elaborate that better than he did. There is no peace either for those ravaged by the climate crisis. Little peace from extreme heat, which kills almost 500,000 people every year, and fierce floods. And I know in Australia, you have experienced fierce floods and bushfires. For those forced from their homes, migration journeys are rarely easy, rarely peaceful. Communities ravaged by epidemics like mpox right now in Africa and cholera outbreaks, they don't feel peaceful either. And personal crises are becoming societal, whether due to external impacts and internal angst. Many people, particularly young people, have developed a sense of hopelessness and exclusion. There's no true inner peace when the internal is in turmoil. Just a few hours ago, I had a chance to visit a program run by the Australian Red Cross here in Sydney, where I witnessed the young parents, sometimes 13, 14-year-old. Many of them experience terrible domestic abuse, exclusion. That's not peace either. So, the work of the Australian Red Cross to support these families, young parents to stand on their own feet, is also a major contribution to the peace. A different type of violence these young parents experienced. 13, 14 years old, pregnant, and excluded from home. That's not peace either. All this means the global humanitarian system faces unprecedented challenges. The latest full-year figures for 2023 showed a record 339 million people requiring international